Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Hayley Spira-Bauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. I love nothing more than having a repeat guest come back to share what they are up to. And this repeat guest is a fan favorite. It is Dr. Barron Davis, currently the Senior Advisor at Digital Promise. Welcome back, Barron.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back, Hayley. I appreciate it. It's great to see you.
It is great to see you. You are by far one of the most wonderful guests on the Learning Can't Wait podcast, both because your expertise and experience is really valued by our audience, but also just because you're so fun to talk to. So I'm excited that you're here.
That's a lot to live up to.
I know, no pressure. No pressure today.
I hope I live up to that today, but appreciate that. It's always great to speak with you. And I love the platform. And again, thank you for highlighting the work that is being done at Digital Promise, a phenomenal organization. And I'm just extremely lucky and honored to be able to support the work that's going on there.
So let's talk about that, because we've had you on while you were working with Digital Promise before. We've had Jean-Claude on to talk about Digital Promise and share what they're up to. But you're here to talk about, you've been working, busy working behind the scenes on building some really important initiatives over at Digital Promise. And what I specifically want to call out about what you're working on is it's in the name. You're working on building the Collaborative Innovation Studio. And what I love about this is that it brings together various stakeholders in the education space to think on big problems. So talk to us a little bit about what you've built, why you're building it at DP, and how it came to be.
Yeah, so the Collaborative Innovation Studio was born out of the Center for Inclusive Innovation at Digital Promise. It's not my brainchild. I've just been fortunate enough to be able to kind of take the baby, as you would call it, from Kim Smith and from Vicky and Jean-Claude with their guidance and support, and with a wonderful team there, kind of start help crafting the idea of what the collaborative innovation would be and what it would do. And it's really centered around asking this question, like, how can schools and communities collaborate to co-create education solutions that work? And we don't want to just create solutions that work. We want to create sustainable solutions that work. However, we believe in the Center for Inclusive Innovation and the Collaborative Innovation Studio that this is going to happen when we center the people who are closest to the problem at the co-design, the co-creation and the co-design of those solutions. They have to be an integral part of that process, and involving them in that process is what's going to help the solutions be sustainable, because it's going to create a sense of agency and ownership of that challenge, not something that's just solely on the solely responsibility of the school or solely responsibility of the community, but it's our challenge. So I'm excited about that. It's because it's doing work with people. It's not doing something to them or doing something for them. It's doing something with them, and I love the sense of community that it creates.
You've touched on so many points that I want to ask about, but what I really am curious about is, how does the building of and the expanding of this collaborative, when you think back to your days as a superintendent, how does it reflect the change management you experienced as a superintendent? What have you brought from that to this? Because what you named here is that everybody has buy-in. It's not this top-down idea. So let's connect those two pieces for a second and just talk about the change management aspect of these ideas that are being born of the collaborative.
It's kind of, I was kind of the precursor of this. I wish I would have had the Collaborative Innovation Studio when I was the superintendent, because I would have been sold on it and been fully and thoroughly engaged in this process from the very beginning. But when I was a superintendent, one of the things I immediately changed was this idea of stakeholder to partner, right? So even in our strategic plan at the time, I changed all the language. We changed the language from this idea of this passive group of people, because stakeholders don't necessarily have to be invested, right? I can own stock or stake in something and not be an active decision maker in it. But partners are typically engaged and have some decision making and ownership power. Well, that's what collaborative innovation is about. It's about partnering schools, communities, parents, students, educators together, working to find a solution to a challenge, and particularly like a long, persisting challenge, right? A complex challenge that has been around for a while. Challenges that we talked about when we were having these discussions around the center was these challenges that people just seem to accept as it is. And the Collaborative Nation Studio says, no, we don't accept that there's not a solution to this challenge. We accept that there hasn't been a right solution to the challenge, and we accept the idea that we haven't pulled the right people together. So let's involve the individuals who are experiencing this, and let's center them in helping us co-research this issue. Why does this issue even exist? How did it come to be? Let's co-create what we think are some good solutions. And then once we develop the solution, now let's co-lead in this as well. You're not done when you come up with the solution, right? We don't let
We
the
don't walk
peers off.
away.
Yeah, you don't walk away. You have to participate in the actual the leading and the facilitation of this. And by the way, let's create continuous feedback loops in this. Let's make sure that we have constant communication going on. Oh, by the way, let's make sure we center the voice of students and we center the voice of teachers in this process. And oh, let's honor those who are, who have that local context expertise and, about what's going on in this community and what's going on in this school. Oh, well, when we do all of that, where we just created ownership and agency, now there's a sense of urgency to solve this challenge and issue. And that's what's exciting about it. I would have written this into my strategic plan. This is how we would address every single challenge that we would have had in the district. And I think, as I tell my superintendent friends and colleagues, you know what? It now kind of gives you a little breathing room, because now every single decision isn't just your decision. This is our decision. And now
Mhm.
you've empowered people to come together, create that muscle memory of how to do this every time they're face some sort of challenge.
And the diverse perspectives of all these various stakeholders you named and the various folks that are getting involved, not everybody's going to have the same exact problem. So talk us through a little bit about how you work through incorporating these various stakeholders and diverse opinions into the work.
Well, the first thing is we never assume, and I thank you for saying that, Hayley. We never assume that they all have the same problem, and they may have the same problem, but it may be contextualized to their community and to their school. So we have to recognize that and honor that, so that we don't give this blanket type of intervention to a problem because it worked over here. That means, it worked in California, so it's gonna work in South Carolina and it's gonna work in Ohio. That's just not the reality of it, right? But when we bring individuals together, we want to identify, as we said, those who are experiencing problems. So if we're focusing on chronic absenteeism, well, we should be talking to families and students who are experiencing chronic absenteeism, right? And we're asking questions. Our research team is a part of this as well. We're asking questions that are going to give us the information that we need to be able to put back in front of those individuals, for us to synthesize that information and that data that's related to their issue contextually, right? So you'll hear me say that a lot. We have interviews where we do these, community interviews with individuals. So when we were doing a chronic absentee cohort, for example, you had to interview students who were experiencing, you had to interview parents who were experiencing, you interviewed administrators who were dealing with chronic absenteeism in their schools. We also talked to teachers and other students and how the chronic absenteeism was affecting them, although they weren't necessarily the ones that were experiencing missing school, but they did experience what it was like when a student was reintegrated back into class after missing several days. What's that perspective as well? Doing those things allowed us to get a very diverse very diverse insight to the challenges that were being faced and the challenges that had to be overcome. We also conduct root cause analysis. We do student personas. Like, we want to put you in the shoes of the student that is experiencing. What is it like for the student to have to navigate through life with these challenges we just kind of identify, creating that sense of empathy? Because one of the things we want to do is get out of the deficit mindset that exists sometimes when you're trying to solve a challenge or solve a problem with or for for a community, right? So getting you out of that, helping you understand that it may require a mindset shift to be able to do so, and having those types of persona walks, student persona walks, or some sort of empathy type of exercise gives you the opportunity to experience what that is like firsthand. This gives us a very diverse and I think very complete picture of what the true issue is. And that's really important for us because we want to make sure that we are addressing the real issue. So when we're doing
When
root cause
something could be
analysis,
a symptom, right? Like what you're
yes.
looking at could be the symptom, not the actual root cause. Yes.
So see, Haley, you could come work with us on stuff like this, right? Because that's exactly right. That's what you could do. Because that's what we said. That's what chronic absenteeism.
Right.
We
And
talk about.
let's go in there, right? Because
Yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah.
like
That's
champing at the bit to talk
yeah,
about. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. That's what it is. It's a symptom. It is a symptom of something else.
Yes.
It's not the problem. It is the symptoms that have manifest themselves into chronic absenteeism, right? It may have manifested itself into low graduation rates because you've missed school. It may manifest itself to low college entrance rates because you've missed too much school, or it manifests itself into limiting your employment opportunities because of your attendance. The issues are those things that we want to be able to address, right? It may be a health issue. It may be some sort of family issue with your family's health. It may be due to transportation, or God forbid, you may have to look in the mirror as an educator and realize it may be instruction. It may be students don't feel safe at school. It may be that we need to revamp a curriculum and at our curriculum and the learning experiences at our schools to engage our students more, creating a fear of missing out, making them want to come to school more. So those are the things that are usually what we found to be the challenge or the issues. And by doing those root cause analysis and not just and seeing chronic absentee or anything as the symptom, we're able to now to address the problem.
Such a big topic. I mean, the next week I'm about to release the 5 most popular episodes of the podcast ever in 8 seasons, excuse me. And number 2, I believe, is with Hetty Chang from Attendance Works and Malika Bibbs Elwin from New York City Public Schools Attendance Office. And it's, there's a deep conversation had about attendance, and you've hit the nail on the head, how it's a symptom and not the root cause. What I am curious about, Barron, because you've named all the pieces for me as I hear it, I'm like, yes, that's like stakeholder involvement, build consensus, do all the things. One thing I'm curious about, since you have such a unique setup at Digital Promise, is resource sharing. How much does that come into play here? Like, how much does the outcome of the collaborative involve, like, oh, well, we'll work together on this as we tackle it in our communities? Or is that not a component because everybody's problems are so unique?
No, I think resource sharing is internally at Digital Promise. Resource sharing is I don't think that issue exists from my perspective. I think it is probably one of the most collaborative organizations that I've ever been a part of, and I think that starts from the top down to the bottom, where the understanding is that we're one team, collectively addressing improving the educational experiences for the students all across the country, particularly those who are marginalized, who experience marginalization. I think for those who have participated in our work, whether you're in a part of the League of Innovative Schools, or whether you're a part of the Verizon schools that are, whether you are a part of the work that's being done in the Center for Inclusive Innovation, I think collaboration and resource sharing is not only understood, but something that is highly encouraged. And so in our cohort, we did a lot of sharing of resources, particularly ideas, but even the resources that we created for those individuals that were a part of that. they were able to, they were able to walk away with some tangible resources to help them in their process of addressing chronic absenteeism. But I think what we learned the most, and what I've appreciated most, even as a educational leader, is being in spaces with my colleagues who do have similar challenges,
Mm,
but also respecting the fact that we have some differences in addressing those challenges. But I get to hear things that you have implemented.
mhm,
Maybe I've learned what you did wrong, because, Haley, I believe the best learning comes from mistakes.
mhm.
What I didn't do right, and understanding, if I redo it this way, maybe it'll work the next time.
Right.
And so not getting it right the first time is such a valuable asset to a leader and to an organization sometimes. And so we share strategies, we shared resources, we shared ideas. But more importantly, yes, we did share actual tangible documents and things like that, from whether it's the root cause analysis, the student persona. These are things that they can take with them to conduct, and to implement into their repertoire of strategies to help improve the learning experiences for their students.
I love that. So, what has you really excited about this upcoming school year and the work that you're focused on?
Great question. So a little bit of excitement and a little bit of I guess nostalgia. Every year around this time of the year, um, for like 28 years,
Right.
I know exactly how my day was going to start at the beginning of the school year. So
Yeah.
the last couple of years, I've not had that experience. So I missed that. But what I'm most
Sure.
excited about is what we're doing in the Collaborative Innovation Studio. The fact that I believe collaborative innovation is truly gaining momentum across the country. I have been in conversations with school districts throughout the country, whether it's in Calistoga or in Hawthorne or in New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to talk to a school system in the Dominican Republic. I've had an opportunity to meet with several nonprofit leaders around bringing collaborative innovation into their repertoire of strategies to solve challenges.
Hmm.
Working with several universities, we have several partnerships kind of lined up with several universities right now. It is big, the momentum is picking up, and that is exciting. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to see how many people we're going to bring into the fold of the studio and underneath the auspice of a digital promise as well. And I just want to watch it, just want to see it grow. So I love seeing it grow. But most importantly, Haley, what I think it's creating for me, and I'm speaking from Barron's perspective, this large sense of community
Hmm.
um, all across the country. And now we have a tool, a format, a methodology to address these challenges for our students and our communities. And that's exciting to see people to do that.
Yeah, the community aspect of it is what really has me most excited. I talk to superintendents a lot on this podcast and also through the work I do at Full Mind. And I hear so often how it can be a lonely job. I don't think people realize how lonely a superintendency role can be. It's not like you can turn to somebody else on your team and just, lament all your problems, because they're not living those same experiences. And even if it's not the superintendent, it's, the chief of human resources, or it's the principal. And it can feel really isolating. And you're nodding your head. The audience can't see that, but you're nodding your head. You lived that for a very long time as a superintendent. And so the community aspect of it and the space to safely share what isn't working for your community is enormous.
It is. It is important for superintendents and educational leaders to be able to do that. The role of a superintendent has shifted, I think, exponentially since, over the last 20 years, but more so after COVID. And the importance of being able to be a galvanizer, a individual who is able to, have that kind of catalytic leadership style to be able to bring people together from different walks of life, from different perspectives of life, all who live and represent your community. understanding and helping them understand what is needed in order to help you educate the next generation of leaders is incredibly important. And so it can't be done in silos, and it can't be done in isolation. And one of the ways to solve the biggest challenges is to do it collaboratively. And I think that's where the value of what we do in the center and what we do in the studio, what we do at Digital Promise, is why it's one of those must-haves that we need and embedded in our educational systems, in our practices, as well as in our communities.
You know what, Barron, you have alluded a few times here to how summer always feels different nowadays that you're out of the superintendency. But I'm curious because you obviously have the perspective of holding many, many roles within a very large school district. And now working with leaders and community members and various stakeholders within school districts. And when you look back, other than wishing you had the collaborative to integrate into your strategic plan, which I know you wish you had, I'm curious what other things you've learned recently that you would have taken and implemented had you still been in the hot seat.
Oh wow! If I tell you, definitely, what stands out to me would be creating a space for student voice that was real, right?
Yeah,
Like not the check the box. I have a student advisory.
right.
I have, and I listen to the challenges and the problems from the perspective of the student, and I do all the take the photos and things like that. And it's really in embedding student voice into the work that we're doing. I want to hear, but not only that, I want them to be a part of co-creating. So I would take that co-creation piece, and that co-creation piece would plant that seed as many places as I can. I would in a district, and I would water that seed to just water it and nurture that seed of the understanding of co-creation. And so that's from everything to, courses that we're going to be offering that are going to be. And one of the first things I thought about was one of the things we did in my district was we had locally board approved courses. The adults created the locally board approved courses. And I can't tell you in the 7 years, almost 8 years I have never talked to one student about a locally, a board approved course. I would also, second thing I would do is definitely feedback loops. Like I would be very intentional about feedback loops. And that's something that I really picked up from my work in the center, in the Center for Inclusive Innovation, and in the studio and at Digital Promise, is the importance of getting feedback, right? I talked about communication, that communication was more than a one-way street. You got to talk and you got to listen. But once I did the initial kind of talk and listen, that was it. But these continuous embedded feedback loops into things that we were doing. Actually, how's the class going that we co-created? How is this new policy taking place, is shaping up? Like, what's the challenges with the policy that is being implemented? I immediately thought about that with the cell phone policy, the cell phone bans that went out around the country, things like that. I would want to hear those, and that wouldn't just be for the school. That would be for the parents. That would be for my communities, right? So in creating these embedded feedback loops and centering myself in that process, so that I'm getting this information in real time, and then I'm monitoring and making the adjustments as we are navigating down this course together, because that's what a leader does. I've always thought about leadership in that way. You got to move around the organization as a leader. Sometimes you're in the front, sometimes you're in the middle, sometimes you're on the side, sometimes you're in the back, to make sure that everyone's going where they need to go. And so once I've got those feedback and I put that in place, it's time to step back and look out and see how the organization is functioning now. And that would have been something that I would have done.
Right.
Definitely.
I'm going to touch on the first thing you said, which was that I loved your call out here. You would involve student voice in an authentic way, not just like I have a student advisory panel. And I think so many adults are afraid to hear what kids have to say sometimes about the decisions that are in front of them, or,
Yeah.
like even the cell phone ban is such a good example. there are some really outspoken school district leaders that are on LinkedIn that are talking about how their children in their homes, like their own, children, are approaching, like how they feel about a cell phone ban. And then that informs how they, as a superintendent or a leader, are going to go back to their community. But that should be regular. That should be always part of the process, that you have kids telling you what they really feel. And, it all connects back. Obviously, this. I'm just saying this as I
Mhm.
make the connection in my brain to student attendance. Because when
Mhm.
students have agency and voice in their own school, there's that buy-in that they're going to want to come to school because they've been a part in co-creating their own education.
I absolutely agree with that. And I was fortunate, like the superintendents you talked about. I had 3 daughters in school while I was superintendent of schools,
Right.
and 2 were in high school, 1 was in middle school, and they're not shy of voicing their
They told
opinions
you.
about anything that I was doing. And then, so if I thought something was really taking place, going well, they would be the first to say,
Like,
"You
no,
might
Dad.
want to go and talk to somebody else about that, Dad. That's not really going great." But I
Yeah.
absolutely agree with that. You want to, it's about, to me, it's always been about the learning experience. I see school and still see school as an experience to be had,
Yes.
right? So the same as if I go to a great restaurant. Some people want to go to a restaurant, they only want to go for the experience.
Yes.
They can vacate for the experience. Well, what is the K-12 experience like? And do I feel, so if I have an opportunity to go to this wonderful resort and I get to pick my itinerary of things that I would like to do while I'm there, I'm gonna go do those things. So I think at some point throughout the course of a student's experience, they are a part of creating their own itinerary.
So you've given us a lot to think about here as we talked about what you've been working on at Digital Promise and how you've, from the Center for Inclusive Innovation, you've born this collaborative innovation studio. It is so exciting to hear just about how you've really centered so many different stakeholder voices in collaboration. I'm curious if you are speaking to a school leader right now challenged with any of the challenges such as chronic absenteeism, cell phone bans, introduction of AI, all these topics that are really big in the news right now, what advice you might give them?
The biggest advice I think I would give them is to first center the people who are experiencing the challenge firsthand. Talk to them first. Avoid trying to solve a solution to a challenge that large in isolation with just yourself and your team. Hear and listen, seek out the voices of those who are experiencing those things before you implement any solution. And once you implement a solution, make sure that there's a feedback loop and process for that.
Amazing. Dr. Barron Davis, thank you so much for coming back on the Learning Can't Wait podcast. It is always a pleasure to have you share and to learn from you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Again, I'm thankful and honored for the opportunity to speak and to share about the great work that's taking place at Digital Promise. So thank you for that opportunity.
Of course. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.